take health into our own hands. And I wanted to make a point real quick because I have my brother-in-law. My brother-in-law he just has high blood pressure, but he went to the doctor one time and he was so upset, as you were saying, Sister Nisa, because he said the doctor said he couldn't see him and he was too busy. And he said maybe next week, and his blood pressure was, I don't know, it was like 200 over something. And he said, "You mean to tell me I've been coming to this place for all these years and I have a situation where I just need my medicine adjusted?" And he realized at that moment that he had to take his health into his own hands. So that's part of a message that we have to get across too, that we have to be empowered with our own health. Yes, we do need health care, but we must empower ourselves through how to eat to live, through mental exercises that are healthy, and also our spiritual journey, which has to be supportive of ourselves.
Sister Darnita, how would you suggest that someone empower themselves? If it's like, for example,
Mm-hmm.
I know that if you
Mm-hmm.
were to get a diagnosis of anything, but because we're talking about cancer, we're going to say if you get a cancer diagnosis
Mm-hmm.
and there's so much information out there
Mm-hmm.
about what to do, you got, I mean, they have to ingest that information and
Mm-hmm.
think to themselves, oh my God, what am I going to do this? What stage is it in? Am I
Mm-hmm.
going to die? How am I going to be able to do this? I have no money. A lot of things that possibly could go across and go through someone's mind.
Mm-hmm.
So
Right.
how that people
Mm-hmm.
talk a lot about empowerment, and usually empowerment denotes that someone should be able to get information. But
Mm-hmm.
where can they get the information from? If you're a layperson,
Mm-hmm.
what's the
Mm-hmm.
best part of what I can get information that makes sense to me?
Mm-hmm. No, you're right.
Because it's
Yeah.
a lot of
Mm-hmm.
information out there. Some of it is misleading. And unfortunately, some people go to social media sites that where people are not necessarily
Mm-hmm.
trained or have
Mm-hmm.
any knowledge, credible, helpful
Mm-hmm.
knowledge to give an individual when they have a type of cancer, and they may say something as crazy as, well, my mama drank some turpentine and her cancer disappeared. And somebody might go out here and drink some turpentine. You know, we,
You're right. You're right. I want to answer that because, and I don't know if I can say the C word on here, but what we have just been through with the COVID,
okay.
this has been an earth-shaking lesson in healthcare. At least it was for me, because the way the Black communities, and I'm not all of them, but many, standing against what they were hearing on national television from those who were telling us how to treat ourselves, and the fact that we rejected it, not totally, but many of us did. I thought that was a big statement. Now, did it follow with information as to what we should do? Not necessarily, um, but in many ways it did, because I think somewhere we know that we're eating too much, we're smoking, we're drinking, we're not, and I'm not. There's a conscious group of our people that are making attempts to do better by their health. But you still raise an excellent point. I can't say we've got a whole group that still need our time and attention. What is the
Yeah.
best way to reach them? Knowing that we don't have enough advocates that are in these health centers, then we are at the behest of, sometimes unfortunately or fortunately, some of the social media, and sorting through that is difficult. I hear it on a daily basis myself when somebody comes and says, I'm not taking that because I heard that this can kill your liver, but your cholesterol is 400. So I know you're going to have a heart attack before your liver fails. And so those are the kind of choices that are not easy. And I get it because medicine is not good. But trying to get someone to understand this is temporary, and the distrust is so great that it takes a lot of time and counseling. So we need a cohesive system that's broad. And that's why I mentioned somebody, anyone in your family holding your hand. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter what they know, because two usually function better than one person trying to move about on their own.
Yeah.
But that's an excellent point. How are we going to get our communities empowered properly when
Hmm.
we don't have the access
And
to.
the access to, according, not just the Office of Minority Health, there are many entities that actually know
Mhm.
that there are so many cancer disparities. There are so many different other types of health disparities in our communities
Yeah.
Mhm.
that we can be here all night talking
Mhm.
about that. And those have one of those disparities is that word access is so iffy,
Mhm. Mhm.
because I can't speak for anyone else, for anywhere else rather, but out here, when they're looking at the access that a patient may have to transportation or access to a healthcare center, they look at the population numbers
Hmm.
and compare them where the location is. And you can get there by bus, if you
Mhm.
can bicycle there.
Mhm.
There are some services,
Yeah.
for some medical insurers, who are even kind enough to pay for you to get non-emergency medical transportation and
Hmm.
or Uber.
Yeah.
So to
Mhm.
them, you have access.
Hmm.
Mhm.
I do have
Mhm.
access to the clinic. I do have access to this, that, and the other. But see,
Mhm.
I live on the second floor and I'm an amputee. So in a way, I really don't have access to that.
Right.
Today, I'm
Mhm.
going back for a follow-up appointment because of the chemotherapy that I received 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, and I don't have the energy to move.
Mhm.
So what's the level of quality for my access to my provider? When the non-emergency
Mhm.
medical transport people, the only thing they do is know how to put somebody on a gurney and carry them down the stairs.
Yeah.
And that, so it's
Mhm.
there's a lot of different things that facilitate,
Hmm.
and that can cause that stress that
Mhm.
Sister Chantelle talked about, when it comes down to us getting the treatment that we need. And Sister Darnita, it was something that you said that made me think, okay, and it's not just the
Mhm.
crazy stuff that's out there, but what about being
Mhm.
hard-headed, stiff-necked, and rebellious? And I'm not saying
That's
that
a
to put
problem.
people down.
Yeah.
I'm just
Mhm.
speaking into the actual reality of a person being
Mhm.
advised. and not following that advice, or somebody being in a space
All
with
the
you,
time.
Yeah.
and somebody
Yes.
actually being in that space with you, and they know you're supposed to
Mhm.
leave the meat alone. Y'all kept mentioning that leave the meat alone, and then get mad at you and call you everything but the child of God you are, because you're not preparing meat for them, because that's not good for you. I'm trying to save your life. You
Right.
said you
That's
needed me
right.
to help you, and I'm trying to help you to save your life, but I can
That's
only
right.
do that if you will
Hmm.
allow me to do that.
Right. Right. Right.
That's
And
right. Oh, yeah.
this
Hmm.
is real talk, for real, for real.
It
Because
is.
it's
It is. It is. And
you know,
mhm.
or somebody, one of their coping mechanisms could be using illicit
Mhm.
drugs or prescribed drugs over medication, or it
Hmm.
could be alcohol. That's their
Mhm.
coping. That's their insta play for coping,
Yeah.
Mhm.
and having
Mhm.
to
Mhm.
actually do all of that. And and it's
Mhm.
very hard as a community health worker. It's
Yes, it
very
is.
hard as a health educator
Yes.
to to try to do that. So I'm more interested in what the prevent I am no not more interested. I'm very interested in the preventative measures, because there are
Mhm.
many possible causes of
Hmm.
contracting
Mhm.
cancer, but because, Sister Chawntell, because it's everywhere, just like you
Yes.
said, it's in the food. There could be, where I
Mhm.
live at, I don't even know how long these buildings been up here. I don't have any idea
Right.
how corroded
Mhm.
the pipes
Mhm.
are underneath the ground. I
Hmm.
have no idea what they are, quote unquote, treating the water with so that people's skin won't burn when they take a shower. I don't know.
Right.
And neither, and the thing is that even if the landowners knew, are they willing to pay the price to relocate everybody and then fix the problem and then bring them back?
Mhm. No.
I tell you, shaking your head, because I mean, and that's why sometimes they'll take it and they'll hide it. And I know that I'm going to talk about this. I'm gonna share with y'all one of the greatest travesties of public health injustice. Back
Mhm.
in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, there was, and it's a matter of public record, that the Exxon Mobil company had a petroleum storage up under a big park here in Los Angeles,
Mhm.
in an unincorporated part of Los Angeles County. And after a while, I know that the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development wanted to purchase that park and build a project over it, housing. But when they learned that the petroleum, hexane, and benzene, and all these other cancer causing toxins had gotten into the ground soil of that area,
Mhm.
because if you've ever been to Magic Johnson Park, that park is huge.
Mhm.
It really is. And they decided that, they said, nah, we're not going to build housing here, because no, that wouldn't be right. But another
Mhm.
governmental entity out here did buy it and did build housing apartments there, and allow a daycare center to be there. When
Mhm.
people started getting sick, and the children in the daycare started getting sick, they moved everybody out, put a gag order on them, and they went their separate ways. And overnight, that place was leveled, the
Mhm.
daycare center gone, apartment building gone. And to this day, it looked like it never was there. So when I work with the Black Community Health Task Force about this, and we took it all the way to Sacramento to the Department of Toxicity, right? Toxic chemicals, I'm sorry. And they said, well, there's no way that we can track that. And I asked them, I said, so this housing development that was there, um, in order to qualify, they had to be receiving um, county funds or welfare. Yes, that's
Mm,
true. I said, DPSS don't throw away anything. You can find them if you really wanted to. All you got to do is
Yeah.
go to them.
Mm-hmm.
They
mm,
do not throw away records. And any of the people that went into the the child care center, which was attached to that housing development, those children and their children may have contracted cancer.
Wow.
mm, mm, mm,
And I often wonder about that sometimes when I ride past there, because it's like, and the thing is that hexane and all of that, it went and it seeped and went under all the way up to where there's a high school many blocks away from the site of that
mm,
park. It's on the, well, it's only around the border. That's how they justify. Well, we have no way of knowing that
mm,
that was, if the persons that live there actually have cancer today, we have no way of knowing
mm,
how they got it. But you,
Hmm.
and then this is the one that one of them kind of things where you have to kind of really really gather yourself to not explode when they say things like, well, the people in that community, their lifestyle could possibly have been a factor. What do you mean by that? Well, you have a lot of people, statistics indicate that a lot of people that live in urban communities, they smoke and they drink and they use drugs and this, that, and the other. What does that have to do with those children being sick every day when they go to daycare? They didn't smoke and they didn't drink. So when we're looking at urban health disparities, these are some of the things, especially when it comes to cancer and contracting cancer from something being on site where housing projects are.
I would like to add,
Go ahead,
Sister
Sister
Anissa,
Chawntell.
Sister Anissa, yes, these people, we know their nature. We know how they were made. They just they just living out their purpose. That's what they do, devilishment. We
Yes,
know
ma'am.
that. So on a personal level, like on individual accountability, like for instance, we got more black women dying from cancer than white women. We have to look at that. What food choices are black women making? Where are we shopping?
Yes, ma'am.
Sometimes we're going to have to travel outside of our zip code to another income tax bracket zip code. We're going to have to make these extra efforts sometimes. And also, you mentioned daycares. That's a perfect opportunity for us that have this knowledge. We can meet them at the daycare. We talk to the owner and ask the owner if we could put on like a 15, 20-minute presentation to the moms and just let them know, like, look, what you eat and what you feeding your child is affecting their health and your health. And also take diapers. All babies wear diapers. These diapers are highly toxic. They're full of chemicals if you're not buying the chemical free ones. So we can educate them on that level, kind of give them like shock treatment. Because when they hear about they putting toxic diapers on their babies, they're gonna want to make a change.
That gel, you mean that by toxic and chemicals in the diapers, you mean that gel stuff that's on in the Pampers?
Yes,
Yes.
ma'am.
that beads up when they, yeah,
Uh,
Yes,
it,
yes,
they
that.
wet. Yeah,
Hmm.
that's, yeah. Mhm. Yeah.
so Dr. Darnita, tell us a little bit more about your situation personal. I mean, with
Mm-hmm.
regard to your struggle with helping a loved one overcome
Mm.
their bout with cancer.
Yes. Okay. So, yeah, I'll just say it's a very close person to me. that I took the walk with my family member, and they did everything, and that was by choice. It was colon cancer, and I some of the family was recommending alternative care. However, a lot of people, they will do whatever the doctor says. Now,
Mhm.
that's I think that sometimes you can work with someone who will listen to at least some treatment options, because I think the worst scenario is to say, just ignore, I'm not going to do anything, I'm in denial, this can't be. And because that's when you get yourself into a real bad situation, when you're unwilling to face that there is something wrong, that dis-ease is has taken hold to you. But
Mhm.
anyway, this person, my family member, went through all, I think, 9 months rounds of chemo. It was several rounds per month, and had all this terrible side effects. The neuropathy, where the nerves are damaged in the feet and hands. Um, it affected the lot of organs, the liver, the heart, even. It causes brain fog, and it's a terrible rough road to take chemo. However, if that is part of the treatment, and it has to be up to the person individually, and usually a loved one, because
Mhm.
even though someone may decide something that you may disagree with, what's more important is that they believe something is going to help them. And believe it or not, this is like, it's not, it can be placebo in part, and there's something called nocebo. So nocebo is giving somebody something toxic that really is not meant to heal anyway, which is probably most of the chemo and radiation. But placebo, of course, you can get anything and then you still get well. So you believe it was the chemo. And that's okay, because that's human nature, to need something and believe something is helping. But anyway, so in addition to this chemotherapy, I was always pushing alternatives. So not only, you never want to take chemo and radiation alone. So I was, of course, juicing for my loved one. I was cutting out the sugars, and they're usually not hungry. The appetite is lost, so it's really a fine balance. But when they can eat, it's got to be very nutritious. I was honestly doing Dianetics. I think you mentioned that, Sister Chantelle. Dianetics, because in that whole program, that it says that once you can remove the engrams, the things that are in the subconscious mind, of course, that may be contributing to the cancer, once you can remove those emotional traumatic experiences and attachments, then that is very powerful in also helping the body to heal and helping those cells to regulate. So that was a part of it. There was even someone, this is kind of a funny story, but it was he was I think he was an Indian man, and I don't even know where he is now, but he was blessing water. This was in Florida. And they said he was blessing like whole fields of crops in agriculture. And I was doing things like that because my thought, and I learned the process, even though I practiced medicine, I never had an upfront personal experience with cancer. And I learned in just my studies and talking to others who went through the process and getting testimonies that you have to think, I'm going to do everything. Survival is the key. I think Sister Anissa said that with her dear friend. That is
Mhm.
absolutely right. Never sit back and say, I'm going to just let you do pray. You go to Allah first.
That's
But
Sister
Allah,
Fault. She fought.
yes, there's no spook. We don't believe in spookism. No, you need something because you didn't arrive at the cancer. It didn't happen in a day or a month. It probably was years. And it doesn't have anything to do with you could have done something, but at that point, it doesn't matter because it's not about blaming yourself or I did this wrong. No, you correct yourself. When you find out, you get to work on yourself and you have somebody by your side that's going to help you take the walk and you decide what you're going to do. Don't let anybody talk you out of what you feel can help you, whether that is chemo or radiation, and you have to do also diet and prayer. You have to do everything.
Mhm.
But there is a limit, and you ask Allah to let you know what the limits are, because
The
sometimes
limit
you
of
have.
what, man? The limit
Okay,
of what?
I'm going to tell you the limit of something like chemotherapy in particular and radiation, because these are toxic choices that can be beneficial. Many times they're beneficial because science has, they have fine-tuned chemo, and many women now are surviving breast cancer. I'm going to use that as an example because they have put so much research into it, probably because white women are getting it a lot. So they have specific genes that they can target they've studied that so they can target the chemo to that. And it's a little bit with pancreatic sometimes, some of the other cancers, but there's benefits. So I wouldn't just, we can't rule out, but
Right.
we can balance. And when you start feeling bad side effects, because I've seen people, I think Sister Nisa and I were talking about that you get these symptoms where you're passing out and you're dizzy, and they'll say,
Mhm.
"Oh, well, just keep going until you just fall out." They push you to keep taking the chemo, which is
Mhm.
too much. And I mean, that's just my opinion. This is not medical advice. You have to say, ask Allah. You have to talk to the God and say, I think I'm gonna take a break. I think I'm gonna stop. That's where you're being empowered because you're making these decisions because you've done soul searching, and you have to believe that you're going to be healed. I can't understate that or stress that, but I think that's part of what Sister Anissa and Sister Chantelle too knows, and we're talking about because we are a community largely in despair. Um, we don't see how, we can't see because our condition sometimes is so dire. We have so many problems that getting a challenge like cancer, sometimes it just takes us out because they put such a bad stigma on it. And I want to say the last thing, do not listen to any doctor that tells you you have 3 months, 6 months, a year to live. Do not listen to that. Please do not let that come into your consciousness, because I've seen it every time that a person believes their doctor when they tell them this, it should be a crime. Then that person actually takes that path, and you find that their life is gone to almost to the day that somebody they believed in. And I'm not saying you don't know your doctor, you believe in Allah. You don't believe in anyone, but you trust in Allah. That's it. If your doctor says that, you shut that out of your mind. So, but that's um, what I would say on that. But that's my personal experience. And the person was a fighter and survived also.
That's exactly my friend. I know that once she got her diagnosis, she underwent, I think, 16 sessions of chemotherapy. 16. And then she had the radiation treatment as well, because it had metastasized and it was spreading through her body. And she wanted to live.
Mhm.
And throughout the whole process, she stayed strong. She was not fearful. She did lose her hair, her eyebrows, her eyelashes, the whole nine. And a couple of her family members even went and shaved their head in support. And she had
Mm.
such a strong village around her, and not one time did she ever slow down.
Mhm.
I used to help her. I used to come and help her clean her house and different things like that, and whatever else that I could
Mm.
do. But I noticed that the um the neuropathy really, really used to irritate her, not being nauseous sometimes and not being able to actually taste food. So when she
Mhm.
stopped, but she ate the right kinds of food to help her. But one thing that she realized that she had to stop eating, because she wanted to help build up her immunity, right? And she used to eat a lot of oranges and things that had vitamin C. And then she would realize that her numbers would go down. And then when she started being able to keep oranges and other vitamin C and lemons and limes and different things like that on her stomach without regurgitating it, the numbers went up. And the doctor said, "Oh no, you shouldn't have the vitamin C, because the vitamin C is feeding the cancer. So you're getting new
Mm.
cancer cells back." And so that's actually the catalyst of what made me want to do this session on this podcast, and just have one that's called Life After Chemo, so that people can understand, number one, you're not alone. Number two, there are a lot of things I learned from her that the doctors don't tell you before you undergo the chemo. And I wanted her to share that. I'm still going to have that segment. I want her to share that, because she truly, truly has the story to tell of how she made it. Because at the time that I began helping her, I had two other cancer patients who both have since passed away.
Mm.
One of them didn't make it through the chemo, and the other one made it through, but somehow or another, she passed away. And I have reason to believe it may have been facilitated by not having enough people around her to help
Mhm.
her, like with cooking healthy foods and different things like that, and family members pulling on her, not understanding or not realizing how taxing chemotherapy is, radiation treatment, and especially not even if you're sick and you have something like cancer, that pulls a lot on you. And one thing that your loved one, or anyone for that matter, actually needs when they're fighting cancer is a lot of stress,
Mhm. Mhm.
and issues and problems. And I'm having, can you help me with this? Can you help me with that? And I used to have to help my friend say no, because
That's
she's
right.
one of those,
That's
she's
right.
like the patron saint of lost causes in a sense, because she helps whoever needs help.
Mhm.
Right?
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
no, ma'am, no, you're not doing that today. No,
Mhm.
you can't. I'm sorry. Just tell them I'm sorry. I can't do that. It's gonna be okay. The sun's still gonna shine tomorrow. If you tell them no, I can't help you tomorrow. No, I can't help
That's
you today. But
mhm. Mhm.
when she got strong enough and they deemed her cancer to be in remission, that's when she helps even more, because it's not that she feels that she's a robot, or that she can't be defeated. She feels that she owes it to God to help his people. He spared my life, so I have to pay it forward to show gratitude for what he did for me, and I'm going to go help somebody so that I can help them to save their life. But she's been doing that all her life. You know, she's an RN, and she's one of the best that I've ever seen. Right? She's been such a help to me. She's watched my children grow up. She know my grandbabies. I mean, we've been friends for a long time, and to see her go through that, and to see her be to have victory
Mhm.
over something where her doctors gave her this doom and gloom type of, painted that type
Mhm.
of picture for her.
Yeah.
That's right. Mm.
And she straight
Beautiful.
told, she said, Anissa, the
Yeah.
devil is a lie. He can't have me.
That's
Mhm.
Said, and I'm gonna beat
Yeah,
this. And she
that's
said, and fool kaya fool, right?
that's
Being
beautiful.
it
And
is.
I wanted to add to that too, sister. When this is another, I have several cancer patients too that I kind of hold their hand through it. But this
Mm-hmm.
is a friend believer, and they were. This is a miracle case, really. But anyway, the brother went through chemo, and they were shocked. The wife was shocked at the bill. So, the money, the what? Yeah, the bills come through, and it's like, I don't know, 100,000 a week. And really, you talking about stress, right? And you know you don't have good
Woo-wee.
insurance, but anyway,
Oh
yeah.
my
by a lot of
goodness.
grace yeah, it's
But
something. But by grace and mercy, yeah, they were able to work that out. But they said they started going into the chemo lab, and the nurses were they were like reading their Bible, they were praying with them, and
Oh,
they knew they were Muslim, but it was such a beautiful setting. I mean, and they had never anticipated. So you don't know who's in these places. If you ask Allah really to go with you, Allah will put people in your path. And I don't know
mhm.
how many times I've heard patients say that they ran into, I don't know, someone who has a Muslim name and they just felt at ease, or even if they come in that they're praying with them or reading scripture. So that's where we are. I believe Allah is ready to bless us
Mhm.
if we just had a little bit of faith, and trust. But yeah, that's a beautiful testimony to
Yes.
your friend, Sister Nisa,
yes,
because
ma'am.
everyone doesn't make it. I've had a few
Mm-hmm.
too that that did not, and you kind of can see, some people it's too much, and like I said, there's no fault. It's just
Right.
you can tell that life is too much, and so they don't really have the fight in them.
You mean when you
And
say life is too much, you mean physically,
mhm.
internally, with regard to the what do you call it, the strength of the heart, or on a cellular level, or
Well, no, I mean mentally, probably whatever
Mhm.
trauma. has occurred in
Mhm.
their life, because some people you don't really know what they've been through. And then when they
Yes, ma'am.
come down with a cancer, you can tell by their spirit. You know how you can talk to them and you can feel that, they're going to do as the best they can, but they don't really have that fight. And
Okay.
so the best you can do is support at that point.
Yes, ma'am.
And it has to be okay, because see, we have to support no matter what. Some people really cannot see. I don't know. Like you say, without judging, they just don't. You try to encourage, you try to make them fight, but they don't. Um, and that's difficult. It's hard, but that's what we have to accept sometimes, that
Yes, ma'am.
it's between them and Allah at that point. Hmm.
Yes, ma'am. You know,
Hmm.
I often think about the commercials that I see on TV with the children becoming stricken with cancers. And
Hmm.
I know you mentioned earlier about genetics.
Hmm.
Explain to our listening audience the difference between genetics and epigenetics,
Hmm.
especially as it relates to cancer, because from what I understand, epigenetics is basically something that does not have an illness or something that cannot alter the
Hmm.
DNA of a cell or alter the person's DNA, correct?
Hmm. That's correct. Hmm. Hmm.
So so as far as genetics is concerned, that's something
Hmm.
that the DNA can be altered by illness or by something, some sort of. I can go in here and
Hmm.
I can change the genetic makeup of this
Hmm.
tomato and this green bean, so I can go from green beans that look like tomatoes. I'm just saying, just to get
Hmm.
a
That's right.
picture of
Yes.
that. And I know that's
Hmm.
outlandish, but I'm trying to put it in a way that the listening audience can understand it. So genetics, DNA can be changed. Epigenetics, it cannot.
Well,
Because
well,
I'm trying to
genetics.
understand
Well,
how
I think. Hmm.
I'm
Hmm.
just trying to
No, I think what.
understand if there are
Mhm.
no environmental factors like cigarette, tobacco, alcohol, drugs. Say I live in
Mhm.
pristine in a pristine bubble and I
Mhm.
came down with cancer.
Mm. Mhm.
Do you understand what I'm saying? I'm drinking clean water on clean land. I'm eating a
Yes.
clean food.
Yes.
I'm living a clean life.
Yes.
There are no
Yes,
pipes
ma'am.
or corrosions. I
Mhm.
had the ground tested. There is no
Mhm.
hexane. There's no benzene.
Mhm.
There's no nothing
I
under the
got
ground.
you.
You
Yes.
know, I had
Yes.
little fairies come in and
I.
brush my teeth. so, so
Yes, ma'am.
how
I.
could I possibly get
I.
cancer?
I've talked.
But what about your
I've had a
thoughts? What
patient.
about your thoughts?
There
What you
you
say,
go.
Chantel?
She just said.
That, what about your
Say.
thoughts?
That's what she
Okay.
she said it. Bingo. She hit the nail on the head, because I just had a lady. She was Caucasian, and my
Hmm.
friend referred me to her, and I was talking to her. They were on the phone praying, and then I came in. She wanted me to just do a little short medical consult, and everything I said, the lady said, "Oh, I'm doing that. Oh, I'm doing that. I'm eating right. I'm juicing. I'm, turmeric and vitamin, everything." And I said, okay. So then I went to the thinking, what Sister Chawntell, what you just said. And I said, well, did you experience any traumas or pain prior to getting the cancer? And she said, well, she had been through a divorce, and I guess it was a pretty bad one. And she was left with her teenage sons. And I said, I was asking about counseling, and she said, oh, she said, yeah, I'm fine. I'm over that. but you could hear clearly in her voice that she was still so angry. And I said, wow, this is going to be, really difficult. And I told my friend that because she was the one, she's a psychologist, she was trying to counsel her. But so what Sister Nisa, what you're saying, that given all the perfect scenario, you don't have any finances to worry about, life is wonderful, and then this person gets cancer. But then when you start digging deep, that's the where the Dianetics comes in, or just a good counselor, then you find out they are riddled with pain from some traumatic event, something that
Okay,
hurt
I
them.
can understand that, but in the context of
Mhm.
epigenetics versus genetics, where does that thought
Yes.
process fit in?
Well, okay, so now epigenetics, that's epi meaning around. So that's all the influences of your genetics, which includes diet, a good diet, good thoughts, good environment. That can that can alter the genetics in a positive way. That's the epigenetics. If you come into this world and your genetics are what you're born with.
Hmm.
So some people are born with, I don't know, kind of their genes are a little weak because they'll say, well, my mother was always sickly, or the grandparents or uncles and aunts, they were always sickly. But these genetics, usually it's not specifics like diabetes or blood pressure like we think. You can incline to that more, but a lot of it, that's it's just habits. A lot of it, they're habits and thoughts. So just like in my family, there's colon cancer from I hear my uncle, my grandfather, they both died of colon cancer. And so I'm hearing all the time, oh, you got to get your colon checked all the time. But and I know that's not true because they smoke and drink. So these are these are habits that we have. So those are negative. Does it epigenetics, that can be negative. So epigenetics positively will make us healthier. It'll build our immune system. So genetics is what we're born with, and we have the epigenetics is what we can change as we change our environment and change our
So changing that,
lifestyle.
and so that's kind of like an ecological model
Mhm.
that the world gives credit to. What is that man's name? Brofenbrenner, Yuri Brofenbrenner, when he talk about the
Mhm.
ecological systems theory as it
Mhm.
relates to how a person can grow. A person develops as a social being, and they talk about the
Mhm.
different dynamics that are involved where you're talking about the household, then you're talking about the institution of worship, you're talking about the school that they go to, you're talking about their neighborhood, then
Mhm.
they start talking
That's
about the politics that are involved with the school and the church,
right.
and how
Mhm.
the politics
Mhm.
on a minute level actually grow and evolve into something greater. And then all of these things
Mhm.
can have an impact on the mind, the thoughts, and the behavior of that one individual. So when we talk
Mhm. That's
about
right.
health
Mhm.
thing, it's basically the
Mhm.
environment that that individual was reared in, and the thought that
Mhm.
actually has the power on an epigenetic level to either adversely affect them or positively
Mhm.
affect them. Is that what you're saying?
That's it.
All
That's
right, all
right.
right, all right.
Absolutely.
Okay, now, Sister Anissa, the beginning of your question, the scenario you were saying how in the commercials you've been seeing of the children with cancer.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, that brings
Mm.
me to like when mom is pregnant, the baby's still a fetus. What was
Mhm.
mom watching on TV? What was mom eating? She could be eating something that had soy all in it on a regular basis. Soy is
Mhm.
linked to cancer.
Mhm.
And then she could, mom again, we have these cravings when we're pregnant. eating a lot of sugary stuff,
Mm.
eating sugar stuff, drinking a lot of sugar. So I believe through mom, not intentionally, of course, her diet, her environment, of course, her thoughts all have an impact on why this child, this small child, has cancer.
Wow. Yes, ma'am.
That's right.
Yes, ma'am.
That's right. And some of these mental illnesses too, the autism, which you just
Hmm.
mentioned, autism and gosh, ADHD, all these things. That's
It's a
right.
lot of parents opting out of
Mm-hmm.
vaccinating their babies, but yet at 2 and 3, these same babies are being
Mm-hmm.
diagnosed on the spectrum.
There's
And they're like,
that's
well,
right.
I don't see how because we didn't get any vaccines. That's not the only
Right.
It's not
avenue.
related. I really believe that a lot of those diagnoses may be connected to poor nutrition because we're taught by, I heard the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan say that on a fetal level, it is the brain that calls the rest of the organs and limbs into existence. And if that fetus is not, or embryo, should I say, and fetus, it develops, is not receiving the right type of nutrition,
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
then the wiring or the neurological system cannot develop to its full potential. And something happens developmentally while that child is still in the womb. And when
Yeah.
you, if you compile that, Sister Chawntell, with I'm eating for two mentality, and then you have I'm going, I'm eating all of this stuff that's not so good for me.
Hmm.
And that's
Mm-hmm.
still feeding everything because as far as like ADD goes, a lot of people, let me put it this way: nutritional deficits, meaning vitamin and mineral deficiencies,
Hmm.
they actually mimic some of the behaviors associated with ADD, such as
Yeah.
violence, lack of focus, outbursts, and different things like that. So, and so they're calling it this. But in my opinion, from a public health perspective, I see what you eating.
Yeah.
I see what you're eating now. I see what you're
Mm-hmm.
eating, and what you're feeding, and
Right. Right.
all of these things I think are interconnected,
Well,
and
the
that's the
food dyes
reality.
have been linked to ADD and ADHD.
Yeah, nutritional deficits,
Hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
I know that I'm gonna go out on a limb from my mouth to God's ears. The new medical model
Mm-hmm.
is going to have, like say for example, in this new medical model, Sister Darnita is a family care practitioner, and she's going to see me as a new patient. And one of the first things she's going to do, of course, is run a full metabolic panel. But in that panel is going to include checking for vitamin and mineral deficiencies,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
as well
Mm-hmm.
as
That's
checking
right.
for,
Mm-hmm.
the sodium and the magnesium and calcium, all of those things, and to check the A1C, because basically the medical model
Mm-hmm.
that we're dealing with now only concerns itself with what your A1C is, your blood pressure and your blood glucose levels and stuff like that. But in order, and see, when you have a child that's age 3 and 4 and 5, that's the best time to run that panel to check for vitamins and minerals to see if they have what it is that they need. And you can only do that by checking their blood. They have a child go to a doctor. And, okay, stand up, do like this, put your hand on top of your head, touch your nose, and they'll tell you that that
Go
child
to
is
the
healthy.
heart. Right. Mm-hmm.
And I know
That's
that
right.
because that's what they used to try to do with mine until I start asking them certain questions, and then they stop doing it. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like, no, seriously. Because if they do it
Mm-hmm.
at that age, what you're doing is you're giving the mom and the parents the opportunity to correct.
Mm-hmm.
so that their child will be healthier when they grow up and won't be so ill as they get older. Because I know that I've had young patients that are that younger than my own children with A1Cs at 14,
Whew. Wow.
at 12,
Mm.
young children in the hospital
Hmm.
with organ
Mm.
failure because they had diabetes and their mother didn't know it.
Mm.
But and they couldn't blame her. What are you feeding the child? I'm feeding them everything that they say is healthy. So so they're eating out of boxes and different things like that. And then
Mm.
it's kind of like, okay, so we can't open up a DCFS case on you because you haven't really done anything negligent. You just didn't know.
Didn't
So
know.
we have
Mm.
to establish platforms and keep them going and keep them running to talk about the whatabouts. What did CC and BB want to say? What about the whatabouts? We have to have
Mhm.
those types of conversations so that
Mhm.
we will be able to help those that are actually have a question that pop up in their head, then they dismiss it, right?
Mhm.
And no,
Yeah.
that's how discoveries happen.
Yes,
Those
ma'am.
are hallmarks of good
Mhm.
research. Is a thought that
That's
pop in
right.
your head when you're minding your business, right? So
Mhm. That's
I
right.
just that's what see, and
Mhm.
that's when we get our nerd on, huh, Sister Chantel?
That's
Just
right.
from those
Right.
from those few questions. So, sisters,
You said
I
the nerve of
Like
huh?
just now as you were speaking, I'm still stuck
Mhm.
on the child having organ failure because of diabetes, and mom didn't know waiting for. I'm like, how she have
Because
her?
number one,
How's
she
that
did
They
not know
don't.
possible?
that the food that she was giving them is unhealthy because
No, but what
you
I'm saying is, before it even got to that level, your child was sick. As a
Mhm.
mom, you should
Well,
know. I
mm,
don't understand.
and
That's why I'm.
no.
I wholeheartedly agree. But if you didn't know what
Mhm.
to look for, because it presents different in children than it does in adults.
Mhm. They have diabetes for a long time in children. They don't. The mothers, if
They
they
should,
got
and
more
again,
than,
that
yeah,
new
they
medical
can't pay.
model
No,
will start screening children for diabetes at the age of 4. How about
No,
that?
what I'm saying is,
no,
like,
that's
the child shows some form of sickness, like, mom, I don't feel too good today, or the child look
Mhm.
flushed, or they're lethargic, something like you
I
don't notice that your
agree.
child.
I agree.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I just
I
mentioned.
wholeheartedly agree. But then that's why. Go ahead, Sister Darnita.
No, just the milk. I just want to mention milk and that diabetes in children, but that's all. I'm not going to get into that, but I've seen it
Okay.
too many times. Milk products and these young people with diabetes. Too much
Hmm.
milk. It has
Hmm.
hormones full of it, and it's a packet.
No vitamin D whatsoever, and too much sugar.
None. No, no. Your
Full of
nutrition
hormones.
back to the, yeah, and milk is full of hormones. Yeah. Mhm.
Yep.
That's not proven. They won't say it, but you
But
see it all
no,
the time.
they do say it. They do say it. The
They do say
They,
non-organic. If it's not
oh,
organic, it's automatically full of hormones. If it's non-organic. But
yes.
if it is organic,
Mm-hmm.
or raw, you go to a farm and you got a relationship
That's
with a
right.
farmer, you know
Yeah.
that there's absolutely no hormones in that. And as
That's
you stated, that is correct. So what I found was that the
right.
A2 milk does not have those type of effects on anyone, children or adults.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. A2.
Yes, ma'am. And you can
Yes.
get that anywhere now, like
what is
Target.
A2? What does that stand for, Chantel?
Mm-hmm.
A2 is a
Mm-hmm.
protein. So the cows produce two types of proteins, A1 and A2. Now, for the
Mm-hmm.
most part in the United States, they use the cows that produce the A1. And
Mm-hmm.
that is what's
Oh,
causing, or not causing, but a major factor in
mm-hmm.
lactose intolerant, respiratory issues. And then Dr.
That's it.
Aline did a really good talk on raw milk. And all that is, and when he talked about the raw milk, he mentioned Jersey cow. Jersey cow produces
Mhm.
the A2 milk, which is the
Yeah.
protein. So from my research, because my youngest child has asthma, that is the most
Mhm.
safe. That's the safest. It's organic. It doesn't irritate any respiratory issues. If you're lactose
Mhm.
intolerant, or so you think, um, you can drink the A2 milk.
Mhm. Mhm. It's good.
She said a cow
That's right.
produces two types of proteins, and then they have
Mhm.
cows that produce milk. This cow over here is only producing A2. This cow over here is producing A1. Please
Hmm.
tell me how they're able. Wait, let me rephrase the question. Do you mean that at some point in time, cows were producing both these particular types of proteins, but now they
Mhm.
have done something to where
Hmm.
these purple
Right.
cows are producing A1 and the green cows
Exactly.
are producing A? Lord,
Exactly.
Lord.
Exactly. So if you go on YouTube and you type in Alim Muhammad and raw milk, you can hear him say it throughout the lecture, Jersey cow. And then I'm like, let me look up this Jersey cow. So, and then it led me to the A2 and A1 proteins.
Okay. Learn
Mhm.
something
Mhm.
interesting every day.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Thank you
Mhm.
so, so much. Sisters,
Mhm.
we have been on here and we could still keep going. And I think we done kind of went over what, 38, almost 40 minutes over.
Oh
So
no.
yeah. No, because it's this 8:08 right now, and actually it was supposed to be
Wow.
from 6:30, 7:30, but it's okay because we good. We and you know, I'm
Mhm.
interesting. I there's so many different types of ways to get information to people. And
Mhm.
I am very happy that I was able to have the two of you on my platform. And for God, to God be the glory. And I really, really thank you both so very
Thank
much. May God bless you
you.
both always and in always.
Thank
Peace and
you.
blessings to you.
Enjoy.
Thank you all
Thank
for
you.
tuning in to Minding My Mind podcast on Closing the Gap Network. Thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you. Walaikum salam.